is. But to get back to your question of how did my classmates treat me,
Yes.
I made an effort. Yeah, okay, I made a real effort to fit in. I told you that my theory of life almost is scoping out what the culture is and fitting in. I tried to be somebody who would fit in. You know, I'd do the assignments. I'd contribute to class. I tried to make it work.
Well, you know,
And I felt that. Well, and I felt they treated me wonderfully. I mean, I think they almost made me admire bravery.
But you're not a hard person to like, Mitzi. I happen to have met, and I know Mitzi, and I have to tell you that she is a very charming woman. And so I think you could charm anybody. So I have an idea that started very young. However, you've made a comment which I think is very important for our listeners to hear, especially those that are starting out in business, and especially those starting out in the corporate arena. And that is, you know, don't go barging in that your way is the only way. And neither is she saying, you know, be passive about everything. She's saying take a stand, but know what the circumstances are, know who the players are, know what the conditions are, and understand that even though you think your way is the best way, that in that particular situation, in that particular company, at that particular time, it just might not be the right time to approach it that way. And I think that's very, very smart.
Well, one thing that people told me about Frank that I thought was a big ingredient of his success, and I will eagerly share it with all our listeners. One person told me, and actually I observed this myself, so I know it's true, that Frank listened 90% of the time and only talked 10% of the time. And this person who was describing Frank said how often it is that young people come in and think they know all the answers, while Frank, who was, you know, a one in a million genius, was still always listening to others and checking out his ideas. So if Frank had the humility to listen more than he talked, I think I'd recommend that to any young person.
Well, that's why the adage is you've got 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to speak. And talking about speaking, now how did you get into the speaking business, and are you enjoying it?
I enjoy it with passion. It's almost like being in love. I've always loved speaking, and I did have a career in television. So, you know, I like the whole atmosphere. But it wasn't until I wrote a book on Frank that I realized I've got a platform where I've really got something that I can communicate with people. Because, you know, I got to watch Frank in real time, what it took to build this business. And I was there asking him questions. And there was so much wisdom and, just almost a joy of being about him that I was eager to share it with people. And what better way than speaking?
How true. You know, it's well, I think so, Mitzi. I think you're calling yourself a little short, though, because I would think that you would have equally important lessons that you learned in your own career. I mean, there's not a lot of women that have graduated from Harvard and George Washington University, which you have done. You also, you know, that you did so much with your writing. I mean, you were a nationally syndicated columnist, and you also produced all these TV shows. So, I mean, you have a lot to tell. And not only that, we haven't talked about it, but you also own a winery. Is that correct?
Oh, I used to own a winery I had 4 partners. And the 4 partners, we had an offer to sell at double what we thought it was worth. And I would like to have stayed in the wine business, but I didn't want to be the dog in the manger that kept them from it, so I voted to give it up. But I am still in the wine business because I own vineyards in California, and we're the largest supplier to several of the major wineries. And, you know, you asked me earlier about advice that I'd give women, and another one has just come bubbling up in my little brain, which is one of the things that really, really helped me as a businesswoman was to stop being afraid of failure. I made up my mind somewhere around, I was close to my 40s, that I would redefine failure. That if I had tried with everything that I had and every resource and just all the effort that I could muster to achieve some particular thing, and I failed, that I would redefine it. It wouldn't be failure. It was, a badge of success because I had tried, and in the process of trying, I met new people, I learned new skills, I put myself out there, and it would always be a stepping stone to something in the end that was even bigger. So I would advise everybody, if you're afraid of failure, redefine failure.
Well, don't
And
they
to get
say that
specific.
they must say, Mitzi, that most entrepreneurs fail, I don't know, 12, 15, even 100 times before they make it. I mean, entrepreneurs fail a lot because they try so many things.
In the case of my father, he didn't have any real success with the Sheraton hotels until he was in his 40s.
Amazing. And when did he
In
start
fact,
them?
he started them in the 1930s. But something that, it's an image that I cherish, that Mother was telling me about the early days. And they didn't have enough money to get fresh eggs from the store. But if you got cracked eggs and the membrane hadn't been broken, instead of costing, let's say, 10 cents an egg, they were like 2 cents an egg. But if you boiled them, they were still healthy. And I just love the fact that a woman who became like the queen bee of Boston society at one point in her life was so poor, and she had 2 children by then, that she was buying cracked eggs instead of whole eggs.
Yeah, I mean, you just hear stories like that, which is what gives entrepreneurs such drive to do what they do, because many people have started their businesses from their garage or their bedrooms or their one desk somewhere and turned it into some great thriving business. So absolutely,
But with
yeah.
With lots of failures along the way. I mean, a quick piece of family lore of my family. When my mother and father fell in love, my mother went to meet her future mother-in-law, and my German grandmother told my mother, "Don't marry Ernest. He can never stick with anything. You'll end up poor." And she said, "I don't care. I love him anyway. I'm going to marry him." And she did not end up poor.
Well, this happens. Now, let me ask you something, Mitzi, before we get off track. How can people get in touch with you if they're interested in communicating with you, or if they're interested in learning more about you or your speaking topics or anything like that? How would they reach you?
Okay, I would love to have them reach me, and I do answer all communications. The best way is if they'll go to my website and go to the contact part, and the website is www. and then Mitzi, Mitzi, Perdue, Perdue.com. And I'll repeat it in a second. But the one tricky part of that is people want to spell it the way the university is spelled, and it's not P-U, it's P-E-R-D-U-E, like the chicken in people's groceries.
Yeah.
So MitziPerdue.com.
MitziPerdue.com, and you can't forget Perdue if you like Perdue chicken. And I would again recommend Mitzi's book. Excuse me, Tough Man, Tender Chicken: Business and Life Lessons from Frank Perdue. It's just fabulous. And again, her website is Mitzi, M-I-T-Z-I, Perdue, Perdue.com. Well, Mitzi, it has been an absolute delight, and I think that people need to be aware and really understand what it takes to be successful in business, and then also to understand that it's not a quick process, that it's something that you have to learn, and you have to really observe, and you have to participate in, and you have to take the good and the bad at the same time. So I really want to thank you for being with us today, and I encourage everybody to go to Mitzi's website. It's fantastic, and read her book. It is absolutely fascinating.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been pure joy.
Well, thank you for being with us, and thanks everybody for listening.